Hello and welcome. You've landed on Zero Limits Living. Every week I bring you inspiration and information to transform your life. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale, and I'm very excited to say that this show, being as young as it is, has already blasted into orbit. You can see it or watch it on 1,000 platforms across the galaxy. Yes, it's also on other planets at this point, I'm guessing. But if you're on Roku or Amazon or Apple or YouTube or any platform you can probably name, you will find this show. I'm also putting this show in one place online just so you can go and binge very easily. So go to ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. That's where I'm putting everything. Also, I want to remind you, I am still maintaining that you can have a free consultation to learn about Miracles Coaching. Now, coaching is very trendy right now, but I started Miracles Coaching almost 20 years ago. It is proven, it is tested, it is a system that has been trademarked and has stood the test of time. But don't take my word for it. Just go to miraclescoaching.com and find out what this is about. Get a free consultation, get your questions answered, hear what they have to say, and then check with your soul about what is right to do. miraclescoaching.com. Now, every week, I search the world to find the experts, the authorities, the people that can really elevate all of us, including me. Because the show is called Zero Limits Living, I want to find out, how do we actually get there? How do we live at zero? How do we transcend our limitations? One of the best ways is with coaching, which is why I always tell you about Miracles Coaching. What would be better than that? Well, I have one of my Miracles coaches here today. This man is a longtime friend of mine, a longtime Miracles coach. He has authority, credibility, experience that is going to blow your hat off and your socks down, or whatever the phrase happens to be. Let me introduce the man so you know what you're in for here. I'm going to put my glasses on to read his impressive bio. Adam Mortimer is one of my original Miracles coaches. He's been referred to as the Blockbuster for his ability to identify and eliminate unconscious blocks. But he's far more than that. His inventions have been featured on Inc.com, ABC News, and GQ magazine. He has shared the stage with Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank and Willie Robertson from Duck Dynasty. He recently spoke at the Best You event, where he shared the stage with Marie Diamond, who I've had on this show, and Paul McKenna, the top experts in Europe on personal development. He has coached thousands of clients all over the world on the topics of wealth creation and personal development. Adam has coached for Brendan Burchard, Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, Nightingale Conant, The Silva Method, Mind Valley, Learning Strategies, and many other leading companies in the field of personal development, including for my fans, friends, readers, viewers of this show. Adam is the creator of the Quantum Meditations program and the author of the best-selling book, The Secrets of As a Man Thinketh. He is also the creator of the Miracle Journey Journal and the author of all the Achieve Today coaching and training products. But this goes on. Adam is a master sales trainer who has coached and trained hundreds of people to success in high-ticket coaching sales. He uses behavioral sciences and the latest in neuroscience to understand the human mind and help people understand and implement the art of persuasion and influence. Oh my God, I got to stop here, Adam, because we can go on forever. Adam Mortimer, thank you for making time.
Thank you for stopping as well. I appreciate
that. Well, I didn't want to read your biography. I mean, this is your whole life story showing up here. You're an impressive guy, and it's great to see you. You're a longtime friend. I miss being able to be with you. Thanks for all you do, and thanks for making time for me and the viewers and listeners today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here today, Joe. I appreciate that.
What have you been doing today? That's what I want to know. What have you been up to today? Tell us what's going on in the backyard of Adam Mortimer.
Well, a lot of coaching. I've actually Yeah, then taking up golf and art, and who knew, just exploring some hidden talents and just having fun.
Good for you. I saw that you posted a photo of, not a photo, it was a drawing of a horse. Did you do that?
Yes, I did that. Yeah.
How long have you been doing art?
So I started back in about 2018. I started drawing. Yeah.
Wow. Was this something that was always on your bucket list, or did you just need a break from all the coaching that you do?
It was funny because I remember making that statement when I was in first grade. When I grow up, I want to be an artist. And I'd kind of put that on the back burner for a very long time. And it's just kind of showing up. And I'm like, your passions, you can run from your passions, but they'll find you one way or another, right?
I think that is so telling, because everyone watching or listening probably has a similar story. I did when I decided I was going to be a musician at age 60, almost 9 years ago. I looked around and said, what is it that I wanted to do? Oh, yeah, that was always there in the background, just kind of lurking, music, music, music. So that's what it was for you in art. What I'm curious, Adam, is how did you get involved in personal development? Forget coaching right now, but go to the beginning. You're growing up. What caused you or triggered you or led you into self-help, personal development in that field?
Yeah, that's a great question. At 6 years old, my family and I, we lived in a warehouse. And so I struggled with a lot of limiting beliefs, feeling like I'm not good enough. I don't deserve it. I'm not worthy. I was born with a cord wrapped around my neck, and the doctor had told my parents that I would be slow. And so I grew up believing that I just wasn't as smart as other people. I wasn't as good as other people. And really, when you're told that so much in life, right? I didn't realize it was a negative affirmation. It was negative programming, but I started to believe it. And it was a really depressing place to be, to kind of go, well, God just wants me to be average and I'm okay with that. But there was something deep down that said, that's not true. You have greatness inside of you. And as much as I tried to stuff that down and say, I don't have that inside of me, I can't do this, I can't accomplish anything, it wouldn't go away. And so finally, I remember my wife bringing a book to me. It was the book, As a Man Thinketh. She handed me this book, and it was very eye-opening. When they said, mind is the master power that molds and makes, and man is mind. And this idea that you get to create your reality, and you can create your reality through your thoughts, was revolutionary. And I know that's, we're kind of used to that, Joe. We've been doing this for so long, but when you've never heard, and I'm sure you've had the experience, when you didn't know this, it was, enlightening. It was a game changer. So that was really the gateway that led me down this path of personal development.
And what age, because you said your wife gave it to you. So what age were you when you got As a Man Thinketh?
I want to say about 22 or 23, around there.
Yeah. And I would say that even though you and I know this material, we teach this material, and you did your version of As a Man Thinketh and modernized it, I would say the vast majority of people, this is still news to them.
Yeah.
They're still living victim mentality, especially in a COVID pandemic, war, uncertainty, climate changes, fires, floods. I mean, there's enough for people to look around. If they want to be a victim, they can pick anything they like and then say it's its fault. So I would say for the most people, it's not like what you and I have discovered. So you read the book. What happens after that? Are you led to another book? Do you take a course? Do you get a coach yourself? But I don't know, or I don't remember what took place in your life.
Yeah. So what happened after the book was going to college, and I remember there was a class I took where they invited local entrepreneurs to come in, very successful people in the community, to come in and explain how they became successful. And time again, they kept talking about mastering your mind, mastering the subconscious. And it was almost like on repeat. I knew what they were going to say before they said it, because it was so many of them saying the same thing over and over. And so I went outside and I looked up to the heavens. I mean, I had one of those moments where I said, God, I want to know the mysteries of the human mind. Please teach me. What? And I was expecting a download, Joe. I was expecting like all of a sudden all this information would come. And the answer, as you know, it's like a still small voice, right? It's a feeling that your mind interprets into words. And so I felt in my heart this feeling of, my son, you can fill many libraries on that topic, and you're not going to learn all about it right now. But that led me to a book in the library that jumped off of it just almost jumped out at me. It was a book called The Art of Hypnosis by C. Roy Hunter.
Wow.
And I got this book and I immediately thought, well, there's something special about this book. I don't know what it is, but I think it has something to do with the answers of my prayers. And so I went home. I asked for volunteers on people that wanted to be hypnotized. My mom and my sister were nice enough to volunteer. And I had them doing all sorts of funny things. And I decided to really push the envelope, right? And that's kind of my personality. I will go to the ends of the earth to find truth. And so I wondered if they were just playing, right? I'm like, well, they're just messing around, or they're just playing. I'm going to put it to the test. And so as my sister's in a state of hypnosis, the phone rings, and it was her church leader, right? And she was calling about an activity. She's still in a trance at this point. And I say to her, I want you to sing the I Love You song from Barney on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go. Without skipping a beat, she bursted into a solo, I Love You. And if you know my sister, she's incredibly shy. She would have never done this.
Really?
Okay. And she's bursting out in a solo, like with no context. The young women's leader on the other end is going, hello? Hello, Leash? Hello? Are you okay? What's going on? And I'm cracking up laughing. I'm like, wow, this is so incredible. And so I found this, and I realized you could use it to help yourself. And then you could utilize it to help other people. And then I started studying people like you and hypnotic marketing and Tony Robbins, who does all sorts of hypnosis. And I was like, wow, this is really a gateway to the subconscious. And I'd say that really opened my eyes to beliefs and how beliefs work and how they can shape your reality.
I think hypnosis was my doorway too. When I was growing up as a kid, I was exploring limitations even when I was 12 and 13 years old. I think it was the books on hypnosis that made me understand that there's different possibilities if we were led to them, which is what a hypnotist does. Or if you get to the point where you can do it yourself, which is self-hypnosis, you can actually tap in to more power than what you ever thought you had. And I'm glad that you pointed out that you can do hypnosis for credible reasons, because so many people think of Las Vegas hypnotist and the show hypnotist and the comedy hypnotist, which is valid hypnosis. But hypnosis, as you know, is scientifically valid. People have used it to not have to have drugs to have dental surgery from time to time. So it's a very powerful tool. Where did you go from there? So you're evolving, you're learning hypnosis, you've got these volunteers who are singing on the phone now. And but what's the next step for you?
Yeah, so I started using the hypnosis on myself. I used it for weight loss and to overcome my limitations. And I started to coach finance. And so I was coaching people through their financial blocks. And it was really interesting to me. I started noticing, people would say one thing and do another, right? They would say to me, yeah, Adam, I'll do my homework, right? And then they'd show up unprepared and they didn't do their homework. And when I'd ask them why, it wasn't that they weren't sincere about doing the homework. They really wanted to do it. But it seemed to be there was something holding them back. I didn't understand limitations, subconscious blocks and all that at the time, Joe, but I sensed it, right? It was like, man, what is this mysterious force that's holding people back from doing this? So I dived into behavioral sciences and, how the mind works and how to influence people. And I started to really apply the law of attraction. I didn't even have the framework to call it the law of attraction, but I started helping people with visualization and how to see their goal and how to shift their future self and all of these things. And all of a sudden I started getting results. and people would come back and their homework would be done. And, it was fun. It kind of exploded. And from there, I went to the library. Joe, I don't know if you know this, but some of my first personal development books were written by you. This is super bizarre. No, think about this for a minute. I could have read any other book and it was Borders, Barnes and Noble Borders. They don't exist anymore, I don't think. Some of them still do.
Barnes and Noble,
it was called Borders.
Not Borders, yeah.
Yeah, Borders, I think, is gone. But it used to be right by where I would work. And I went down there and I was reading your books. I can't remember if it was Zero Limits or The Attractor Factor. I think it was a few of your books. I think you even co-authored one with, was it Esther Hicks? Jerry and Esther Hicks, I think. Anyway.
I had promoted Esther Hicks, Jerry and Esther Hicks, and wrote the foreword to one of their books, but I was associated with them for sure.
Okay. So that's probably anyway. So I'm reading all these books and I was taking what you were teaching and bringing it back and applying it to my financial students. And it started just going gangbusters. It was going crazy. I mean, to put this into perspective, there were about 60 financial coaches. I had more testimonials than the entire department for the year out of 60 other coaches. And so, of course, management is going, what in the heck is Adam doing? Has he found the secret sauce to success? What is this? Well, yeah, I would argue that I had. But they were very curious. And they approached me one day and they said, Adam, you've done a really great job with our finance students. Have you ever heard of a guy by the name of Joe Vitale?
Really?
And I said, heard about him. I've been studying him for the last 2 years. Yes, I know Joe.
Amazing.
Seriously, I don't even know if you know the story about this. But anyway, they said, yeah, we want you to be a coach for him. And I said, yeah, I'll be a coach for Joe. Absolutely. I know his content already. I've been studying it and reading it. I mean, when I read a book, I go through, as you do, we highlight it, we study it, we take notes and we absorb it. And not only that, I was applying it in real time with clients and getting results. So I knew it worked. I knew it was valuable. And anyway, that was kind of my whole evolution that brought me to you.
That is, I didn't know all aspects of this, and I'm so impressed and so flattered and so grateful because you are a gem and you are amazing at the results you get. And the fact that you've been with me since the beginning of starting Miracles Coaching is historic and a treasure. So thank you for all that you do and continue to do. For me and everybody. So I have a few questions for you here, stemming from what you just said.
Yeah.
There are things like, I think we should define coaching because I'm kind of representing the people that are watching this show, and maybe they know me, maybe they don't, but they've ended up on Zero Limits Living, the TV show, and they're scratching their head and they're going, well, why would I need a coach? What is coaching? So maybe the first question is, what is your definition of coaching? And the second one would be, why does anybody need a coach?
Wow. Great questions. What would be my definition of coaching? Somebody who knows something that you don't, somebody that can show you how to look in a room that you can't see and explore parts of you that you didn't know existed. Help you remove barriers that you didn't know were in your way.
That's actually, I'm grinning. I'm going, my God, that's inspired. That was like a beautiful poem put into lyrical verse. What wisdom just came out of your mouth? That was fantastic, Adam. Okay. And I also know I introduced you and said you are known as the blockbuster because you help people identify and eliminate the unconscious blocks. And by definition, if it's unconscious, the person typically isn't going to know what the block is, let alone get to it, let alone erase it, unravel it, replace it, whatever they need to do. So for me, that's one of the reasons that we need a coach and why you would be an expert coach. What is a reason that you tell people or that you think the people watching the show or listening to the show need to consider? Why would they need a coach? Why should they consider it?
Well, you simply don't know what you don't know. That's kind of a scary thought, right? You don't know what you don't know. And so people say you can improve the quality of your life if you improve the quality of your questions, but sometimes you don't even know what questions to ask.
Yes, that's right.
And a coach is going to help you ask the right questions to help you explore rooms within yourself that you did not know existed. Powers within you. And I don't use that term lightly. Incredible powers within you that you may not have known existed, talents that may be hidden. I do believe that every human soul is limitless. And if they're not walking around with joy and a smile on their face, then there's a good chance they have a faulty belief system. So a coach is going to help you get beyond. We talk about hypnosis, self-hypnosis. Some people might believe in it. Some people might not believe in it. But you and I, Joe, that people are hypnotized.
Well, when I was on Larry King the first time, I actually said, I was a nervous wreck, but I was on Larry King and sitting there with some of my idols and heroes and other authors beside me. And I said, we're all in a trance. We're already in hypnosis.
Exactly.
It's a trance of a particular belief. Yes. It could just be in general, I believe in poverty, or I believe in abundance, or it's somebody believes I can only be this bus driver. They're in a trance of limitation. So I'm just jumping on the bandwagon to say I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah. It's interesting. The first time I learned how to hypnotize people, I remember being at a restaurant and I put my mother into I did a rapid induction, right? And put her into a quick trance and told her she would forget how to count to 10. And so she's looking at her fingers. My aunts and uncles, they're all watching this going, what voodoo magic is Adam up to? They're kind of wigged out by it, but she's trying to count and she gets to 10 and she says 11. And everybody's looking at her like, come on, are you playing around? Are you doing it? And then she is like straight faced as everyone's kind of laughing and chuckling. She's like, 11, I don't see it. And I think that's a powerful metaphor. When you are hypnotized, you just don't see it. I mean, you could have people, tell you to your face, hey, the next finger is 10, it's not 11. But when you're in a trance, that is your reality.
Oh, I got chills when you said that for a couple of reasons. One is a lot of the people that are watching this are going to fight for their limitations. So in other words, they're going to say, Joe's been lucky in his life, and that's why he's successful. Adam happened to be lucky. He read the right book at the right time. Coincidences took place, and so he was able to meet Joe Vitale, become a miracles coach, blah, 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 blah. And they will fight for the limitations, and they will fight for the story that doesn't serve them and actually isn't true.
Yeah.
But they will use it because of their trance. And I'm kind of stressing this because I want everybody to be considering as they're watching you and listening to us, that they consider that a lot of the things they're telling themselves are part of a belief system that's keeping a limiting trance in place.
Yes.
One of the reasons you need a coach is to help them shine a light on that belief system. Otherwise, you just live out of it because you think that's life.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to say, if you don't mind me interrupting you there, Adam, I get excited when I talk to you, and I don't get to see you very much. So here I am barging through your narration. The other thing is, I can't wait to have lunch with you, but I'm going to watch you close.
Yeah.
You might want to put me in a trance and get me not to count my I'm just teasing you. One thing I want to be clear about, though, because you've mentioned hypnosis several times, is that in miracles coaching or any of the coaching that you would do for anybody, it's typically not hypnosis, or am I incorrect? Do you use hypnosis in the coaching you do?
It depends on the belief. I like to call it meditation more than hypnosis. And one of the reasons why, we know that a lot of people have a belief around that, right? And then you're just fighting a whole nother layer of beliefs to get to the real issue, right? Mm-hmm. But when you look at meditation and hypnosis neurologically, it's not too much of a difference of what's going on inside of the brain. So if people want to call it meditation and they feel more comfortable with that word, okay, great. At the end of the day, it's getting people a result. And what I found is people really don't care how you do it as long as you get them the result they want, right?
Wow. All right, that leads to another question, and I have several for you. What kind of results can people expect? And maybe the best way to share it is just tell a story or two about somebody who ended up going through Miracles coaching. You ended up being their coach, and whatever the issue was. Could you give us a story of some sort of result?
Yeah, I was thinking about the different stories, and one thing that I wanted to share with you, and this is something that has been so profound, is the lives that this has saved. I've had multiple people, in fact, hundreds of people over the years, and when you see someone in person look you in the eyes and say, "Hey, thanks for creating that program. Thanks," and they wanted to thank you. And before I forget, I got to say this real quick because Karim, one of your students, says hi, and he wanted to give his sympathies to Dr. Hulen, and he's just very excited to meet you someday.
Oh,
and he goes, "Well,
nice.
do you think I can meet Joe someday? Do you think that? Of course it's going to happen, right? You expect miracles,
Right.
and they will show up." So Karim sends his love to you.
And
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. That's my ADHD kicking in. Where were we?
Well, now you got me going off here. You've had hundreds of people with the results. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. And so just having people come to you and say, "Hey, this saved my life." I mean, so I have to start with that first, because the lives that this has saved has been incredible. And I'd say one of my all-time favorite stories was Amir. And he came in after 2 years doing these online dating sites, and nobody was responding to his online profile. And so he said, do you think we can get women to respond to my profile? Nothing's happening, and I don't know what's going on. And, there was a story going on inside of him. And we had him rewrite his profile. He actually said, "I love you, I love you, I love you," as he rewrote it. Remember the restaurant story you tell?
Yes.
That miracle that showed up. And I said, "Well, I want you to do it this way." And so he went and he wrote it out differently. And I got an email from him. He goes, "You're not going to believe this. I've had so many responses to my online profile, I've had to take it down." It's one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, and he infused it with love, is what I understand, correct? So as you urged him to rewrite it in whatever way. But the important thing that I think we're trying to get across is that his internal attitude was, "I love you, I love you." He was infusing it with love. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I love myself. That was a big one. So it wasn't just that, but it was being able to shift a lot of negative hatred and anger he had towards himself.
Yes.
You always say, "Well, if you want others to love you, you got to love yourself first." Well, energetically, I mean, that's very true, right? You've got to be in that space of self-love. And it's one of the questions I ask my students often. I'll ask them just out of the blue, "Do you love yourself?" And I like to kind of catch them off guard so they're not ready for the question, because then I can see if they hesitate. And I'll get to see very quickly where they are subconsciously with self-love. And that's, I tell people all the time, if people learn to love themselves, I'd be out of a job as a coach. I mean, seriously.
Well, let me ask you this, and I'm going with tangents, but I do have different questions in my mind, and I had some that are written down, but I'm in the moment with you. And so if somebody is feeling like they were brought up like you, and they didn't feel like they were good enough, they didn't feel like they were loved, and there's so many things that we could say, how do they, in this point in time, watching Zero Limits Living, begin to love themselves?
That's a great question. And, I actually learned this from you, Joe. So I remember your story of, the mirror exercise that you had, remember? And you had to find something about yourself that you did love. And you remember you talked about your dimples and my smile, and I like that. And little by little, it started to expand to other things. And so I think looking at, is there someone or something in your life that you do love? Because often there are things, well, I love my cat, or I love my boyfriend, or I love this person. Okay, how did you learn to love that person? Because that could have been a learned behavior, right? And so, well, what did you do to learn how to love? Well, I told them that I loved them. Okay, well, let's start with telling yourself that you love yourself. And for most people, this is when you don't love yourself. You remember how this was. It's awkward. Yeah. Right. And when we were standing in the mirror, I'm sure it was incredibly awkward to say, "I love you, Joe." And it feels like, but then the more you do it, right? It's like, okay, you affirm it. And yeah, this feels uncomfortable, but I'm going to just kind of go with it. And little by little, you start to get you get used to it. And for some people, it's an acquired taste, so to speak.
Yeah. And I'm glad you explained it that way too, because when you first begin any of these processes, like looking in the mirror and saying, I like this aspect of myself, it feels like a lie.
Yes.
It feels uncomfortable. It feels deceptive. It doesn't feel believable at all. And what I have to remind people is how you got to your own belief right now was the same process. Somebody told you weren't good enough or not lovable, or you came to that conclusion. And at first, you probably didn't even believe it, but you reinforced it and kept reinforcing it. And so what we're doing is the opposite. We're kind of overriding it, but we're saying, I do like myself. I do care about myself. I do love myself. And at first it's awkward and it feels like it's lying, but as you keep doing it, it becomes part of the new program. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about, because you mentioned about visualization and helping people see the images of what they want. I have heard from time to time that people will complain, I can't visualize. I can't see a picture. I can't do imagery. I don't see anything. Mm-hmm. Have you heard that? And if so, what did you tell them?
Yeah. I hear that quite a bit. It's probably 10 to 20% of our population and miracles, that can't visualize.
Okay.
And so you can imagine, somebody being on, a personal development call where they talk a lot about visualization. It's such an important thing because your optic nerve plugs into your reptilian brain, and that's, controls us at a very deep level, subconscious level. And so when I get somebody who can't visualize, I have them, let's say they're more auditory. I might have them listen to music as they articulate their goals, right? Or they get into the feeling of what it would feel like to be that person that I want to become. And so it can still have the same effect, but it's just a different way of doing it. And so for anybody listening who just can't visualize and you're just, oh man, I don't know if I could do this. Just know that there's coaches. I'm one of them, that we have workarounds for that to help you get to the same results without having to visualize. It's interesting when people, even blind people that lose their sight, often they can visualize through sound. They've been able to see that part of the brain, that the visual cortex back here, it lights up for blind people. So in a way, they're visualizing, but it's in a different way. They're activating this part of the brain. And so if you're more auditory, you're more kinesthetic, that's totally fine. We have tools and things we can help you with.
Okay. And I guess while I'm on the subject, do you do coaching like this over Zoom or in person or over the phone or all of it or something else?
All of it. I would say with Miracles coaching, 99% of it is over the phone. And a lot of people like that. It's just you could be in your pajamas. You don't need to get ready for a Zoom call or anything. Right. Some people do prefer Zoom calls, and we're okay with that too. If they want to hop on a Zoom call and they like the face-to-face interaction, that's okay. I'm more auditory, and so I listen very closely to those auditory cues that I get, little pauses, little blips, fluctuations in voice tonality. I can very quickly pick up on subconscious beliefs by doing that. So.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What about when people have objections to even getting like we're offering a free consultation? They go to miraclescoaching.com. They can get all their questions answered, but they still have objections. And even if they go through that and they go, it sounds great, but they're going to object to, I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the whatever would be the next common objection. What are your replies to that?
Well, one of the things, those are some things that we address right up front with people is, do you have the time, 5 to 10 hours a week? Are you going to commit to this? And quite honestly, Joe, if people aren't willing to put in a little bit of time to their personal growth, then quite frankly, they're not ready for this. I mean, That is the reality of it. So you do have to commit a certain amount of time. Do you have the money to do it? Are you willing to invest in yourself? Obviously, this isn't free. We do want you to put some skin in the game. Joe, I've tried coaching people for free. They're the most difficult people to coach in the world. They don't show up to their calls. They miss. They waste your time. It's like, wow. But so do you have the time? Do you have the money? Do you have the motivation? We're going to ask you that up front. We're going to be very clear on our expectations going forward. Now, if you're in the mindset of, well, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't have the motivation, I would just ask, how long have you been buying into that? And are those beliefs serving you? I mean, is buying into this idea that I don't have the money, is that helping you get to where you want to be? You could say, I can't afford it, or you can say, how can I afford it? I don't have the time to, you know what? I'm going to make the time for that which is important to me. Because I guarantee you, if it's that important to you, my mentor would always say there's no such thing as procrastination, only low priorities. So I said, well, what does that mean? And she said, well, Adam, you like football. I said, oh, yeah, I love football. I'm a BYU football fan. Well, if you wanted to go spend 4 hours on a Saturday to watch football, would you make the time to do it? I said, yeah, no problem. I could do it. Okay, you have the time. Okay, it's your priorities. Wow. So is your personal growth and you getting beyond your limitations a priority? That's just something everybody has to ask themselves. So time, money, and then motivation. We do look for people that are motivated. On some level, you have to be motivated enough to answer a phone call, right? Or show up to the consultation. As you always say, when the universe pulls up in a limousine and opens the door for you, what do? You got to get in. You still have to have the motivation to walk inside and sit down in that limousine. And it really is like that. It is like a limousine. Miracles Coaching is a limousine. The universe is opening a door for you. Walk inside, sit down. Even if you don't do Miracles Coaching, what does it hurt to tour around the block a few times in the limousine and just see what it feels like? Right. Because it's going to feel awesome.
Right. Who was your mentor? Did you have somebody that was noteworthy, somebody I would know?
Joe Vitale, obviously you. I've been very blessed to work with a lot of thought leaders in the industry. Harvey McKay, he was a 7-time New York Times bestselling author. Brendan Burchard, he was a great mentor. Zig Ziglar, his family, I got to get trained in the Zig Ziglar process and coaching and their speakership and all of that. So I've been very blessed to have a lot of different mentors.
That's beautiful. And you began somewhere in the beginning of this show talking about you were going to find truth. You were going to search and you were going to find truth. And one of the things I so admire, and I just want to point it out, is that you often went to the library. You went to the library to read the books. And I often hear from people who have the complaint, oh, I don't have the money to buy your books. And I'm like, there's a library that has the books and they're free.
Right.
It's not an excuse. So I'm just curious about, did you find truth?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of truths, and I'll share a story because I think that so often when people are looking for truth, they're looking for the big nuggets, right? And often they're found in small and seemingly simple things, but cumulatively, it adds up to a great truth. And what I mean by this, so the story that illustrates that is a gold miner. He sold everything back in 1849 to go do the California gold rush, right? He's out there panning for gold. And he's getting very frustrated because all he's finding is these tiny little flakes. And he's just throwing the pan everywhere, and every day it's the same thing. He's like, I can't make any money off of these flakes, and this is so frustrating. So he's about to quit. Isn't it amazing how mentors often show up in the moment of crisis? Right. It's just funny how that works.
Right.
Anyway, in his moment of crisis, a mentor shows up, and he has this big, hefty sack of gold. You know how heavy gold is, right? And he hands it to him, and he's, what is this? And he goes, open it. And he looks at it, and he sees all these flakes of gold. And he said, as you've been going about throwing away all these little flakes, I've been collecting them.
Oh,
And I feel like there's a great truth in that, that as my mentor would say, the small things mean a lot. That's not true. The small things are everything.
yeah.
So often as you learn these little, what's seemingly simple things, right? And affirmations seemingly simple. Learning how to put yourself into a trance, seemingly simple. When you start to put these things together, these little flakes of gold add up to a massive wealth of wisdom and knowledge.
Mm. That is beautiful. So let me ask you, what is exciting to you in all of this today? Whether it's miracles coaching, miracle or personal development in general, or even in your own life. You're a family man. You got your kids, you've got football that you're into. Now you're doing your art, and who knows what else you're doing besides making your relatives go into hypnotic trances and dance on the table. What are you excited about these days?
You know, I'm excited about life. I'm excited about
Mm,
continuing to pursue truth, and I love teaching.
mm,
I authentically love when people come in and they're excited to understand the
mm,
mind and understand how the universe works at a deeper level. And really, when you get, I'll give you an example. Karim, the student that I talked to just today, he said, Adam, I can honestly say this is the best decision that I've made in my life to do this coaching.
mm.
And I mean, that's just wow.
Yeah.
To have that kind of power. In a way, it kind of feels like maybe this is egoic, but this is how I feel sometimes. It kind of feels like you're the great and powerful Oz in people's lives. You get to have that type of an influence that not only impacts them, but there's a generational impact, right? Because they take it and they teach it to
Mm.
others, and it's this ripple effect of positivity, of goodness that goes out into this world, and feeling like I made a difference today.
Mm,
I mattered today. I taught
mm.
someone to love a little bit deeper today. I taught someone how to understand their mind. I helped somebody have a breakthrough today. It just never gets old for me. It never, ever gets old. And I do love a lot of other things. I love a lot of other passions, but my number one passion has always been personal development. And I believe it always will be.
This show is called Zero Limits Living, and I always like to ask my guest, do we have any limits? Do you believe we have any limits?
Do we have any limits? I would say on a spiritual level, on a physical, on obviously physically, there's limits, right? There's limitations. We can say that, right? I'm not going to be 7 feet tall. There's limits on how much I would grow. But as far as what you can create with the imagination and what you can bring into your life and the life that you can have, I have yet to find a limit. And
Mm,
so I do believe we're limitless. I do believe
mm,
every human soul is limitless, has the potential, and we're all striving for that, right? We're
mhm,
all trying to push those limits,
mhm.
with our health. Or I know you bend nails, right? And I remember I bent a nail just to see if
I
I could
never
do it. And
forgot it. I never
whew,
forgot it. In fact,
and
that was one thing I wanted to point out because you did that from reading a book. You
yes,
read my book,
your
Anything
book.
is Possible, which is about the strongman training I went through. And I explained how to bend a nail in it, which is not a hypnotic trick or
Right.
some magic sleight of hand. You actually do have a real nail and you
Yeah.
bend it, or a
Yeah.
horseshoe and you bend it. And what I was most impressed with, because it may have been the last time I saw you, you told me the story of
Yeah.
reading the book, going to buy the nail, coming back, and then working it, bending it, and even going through the mind dialogue of thinking to yourself, this might not work. No, I read in the book, I have to keep doing this. Joe says maintain. And
Yeah.
son of a gun, you bent the nail.
Yes.
And the reason that I applaud you is because you did it from reading.
Yes.
People see the background for me as like, that's not a fake screen or something. Those are real books. I am a book guy. Most of my wisdom, my expertise, my knowledge can be traced back to the things I read. And I hear that with you, which leads to the question, what are some standout books? And they don't have to be by me, but standout books that you've read in personal development that had an impact on you or some of the students in miracles coaching.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite. Well, I've got a lot of favorite books.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as you know, as a book lover, it's kind of like picking your favorite child, right?
I
You kind of feel like,
understand. I
I'm on
understand.
like I don't know about you, but I can't throw away books. Like if I
Right.
have a book that's impacted my life, I can't throw it away. I love it.
Me too.
Some of my favorite all-time books, Think and Grow Rich is a classic for sure. As a Man Thinketh made a huge impact in my life. I do love Awakening the Giant Within, Tony Robbins, his various books. Unlimited Power is a really good one. Gosh, all of your books, you know, I've read many of your books. And your recent, I mean, it's hard to keep up with you, Joe. You're prolific in your writing, and your ability to write and inspire is amazing. So I've read many books by you. Attract Money Now. I love that book. One of my favorite lines in that book that helped me the most was ask for help, you know, that was so important to, you know, stop trying to do everything on your own. Ask for help. And I'll tell you, your life will go so much farther. Because of that book, I don't mow my lawn anymore. I used to mow my own lawn, and I just don't. I realize there's people that, you know, I can serve, right? By paying them to do that. And so I just believe in that. And but I think that's amazing. Those are a handful.
Those are great. Thank you, Adam. The book Attract Money Now is free. And I'm telling all the viewers and listeners, just go to attractmoneynow.com and you can read the book. There's the digital PDF version there, attractmoneynow.com. There is a printed version. I think that's attractmoneynowbook.com, or Amazon might have it, or your library might have it. Don't have to pay anything, but it is free, attractmoneynow.com. And while we're speaking of books, I wanted to say I recently reread Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, and I almost wanted to burn all of my books. I thought, oh, this is it. Psycho-Cybernetics. It came out in 1960, so it's slightly dated, but surely not much. And it's just brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And the other book I read recently was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And I thought, that's a hands down masterpiece. That is just almost the Holy Grail. And I'll be interviewing the great grandson of Viktor Frankl on this show. He's made a movie. He's made a movie about Viktor Frankl, an independent documentary. And I'm going to be interviewing him on this show in a couple months, something like that. So those are two more books that have influenced me. When it comes to some of the teachers who have influenced you, you mentioned a few, but are there other standouts that are still out there cooking that we can go check out? Bob Proctor, of course, influenced me, but he's gone now. His legacy will live on.
Yeah, Bob Proctor is awesome. I love the classics. Jim Rohn, he's a classic. Jim Rohn, that's right. Tony Robbins, of course. I love Tony. Brendan, I do love a lot of his stuff. It's slipping my mind. Who was it? Oh, Dr. Benjamin Hardy. He's kind of an up and coming guy.
I interviewed him for the show.
Oh, did you?
On the show. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. His book, in fact, that's one of the books I'd recommend. Personality Isn't Permanent.
Okay.
Personality Isn't Permanent was the first one I read by him. His new one is Your Future Self.
Yes.
And that's the one I interviewed him for a few weeks ago. I'm a fan. He's writing new books right now, and we both enjoyed our time together. We're going to have a part 2 on the show itself. All right. I got to ask a few more questions here because we're going to run out of time. They're going to bring a big hook out, take me out of the studio, throw us in the street, or whatever they do with us. So things with you, Adam. What is a question you were hoping I would ask? Did you secretly write down a question or have it in the back of your mind? It's like, boy, I hope Joe asked me this one because I got a great story or I got a great insight.
What is a question I would have hoped? That is a great question. What is a question that I wish Joe would have asked?
The other side of the question I sometimes ask is, what's the question you feared I was going to ask? Like, dear God, don't ask me that. Because as soon as you tell me, I'm going to ask what it is.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I mean, those are great questions. I feel like the questions I wish you would have asked, like just being able to tell my story, right? What's your story? What's your background? I feel like that was the question that I love sharing, kind of the miracle that took place to get me into Miracles coaching, and all the little dots that had to connect to get here. I could have read any other book, but you happen to be the person I was studying that day and that for over the years. And it just so happened that, have you ever heard of so-and-so? Joe Vitale. Yes, I've been studying him for the last 2 years. Well, I want you to coach for him. So no, I feel like you've asked the questions. As far as the fear, coaches are like Jedis. We do our best not to fear anything. How's that?
That's very good.
I don't want to say I have no fears. I do have a fear of needles. So maybe questions about getting a shot. Oh, challenging me to donate blood, that freaks me out. So that's something I want to do someday, but that is a great fear that I have. I don't like needles.
Well, I was going to send you a coupon for your birthday to get an acupuncture treatment. That would be like 100 needles. So I'll take that off the list. I'll send you, donuts or something, with no needles in them.
I'm up for the challenge, but you know what? The thing we do in coaching is we ask people to face their fears, right? Yeah. And so while I say I have a fear of needles, it doesn't prevent me from getting shots, right?
Which is a great distinction, which is a very good distinction. Thank you for pointing that out. So what would be a takeaway? We're coming to the end of the wire here. And what would be something you want people to think about, something to do, the next step for the people? They've watched us, listened to us this far. What would you want them to do next?
I would want them to really consider what we've said today. I'd really want them to think about the fact that they might be hypnotized and really step into that reality and realize that your reality, as much as you're trying to defend it, there might be a better reality waiting for you. If you can let go of confirmation bias, stop collecting the books that support your belief system, right? And find a new book, a new way of thinking, and get somebody who's not operating in your same belief system to maybe challenge you and open you up a little bit to seeing the world in a new way.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. All right. Do you have any last words?
Love yourself, go do good in the world. And at the end of the day, you have the ability to be limitless. You have greatness inside of you. And if there's any doubt or fear, I love what you always taught, Joe, and I've never forgotten this. I've shared this with thousands of people. I found the escalator to life, and I chose to live my life with faith. Choose to live in faith, and you'll see miracles.
Oh, Adam, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you. You are, I love you. I respect you. I'm grateful for you. Just thank you. Thank you for all you do for me and for everybody that's in Miracles Coaching and more. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thanks, Joe.
I've been talking to Adam Mortimer, who's one of my chief coaches at Miracles Coaching. Go to miraclescoaching.com. Get a free consultation. You can request to work with Adam Mortimer. That's who you've been listening to. But go to miraclescoaching.com. Find out more. Also, I want to thank Lux Media Studios for putting on this show, Candace Barr for backing it, Chris and Nick's behind the scenes today running cameras for us. You've been watching Zero Limits Living. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. Every week I bring you another juicy episode. Go to ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com to see all of them, ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com, and expect miracles.
Glutathione is a big word. It's the body's own master antioxidant. It's a scavenger for free radical, bacteria, and viruses. There are no products in the market with the ingredient NASET. NASET increases the production of glutathione that's in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system, elevate sense of well-being, support muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, and liver support. It helps with increased energy and blood sugar regulation. Get your bottle of GSH Plus from www.salvationnutra.com.